if you know those trigger points, then you know if you start a campaign, you really want to be able to get your final proposal before the renewal on the competing product that maybe they already have. I always want to surround myself with valuable, smart people. You can't soar like an eagle if you're surrounded by turkeys. So the team is key. And I always want the team to feel like I have their back. So if I ever need them to go the extra mile to do more, that they're always there to do it. And I always want to lead by example. So employees come first, and I'm not asking anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do.
Great. So let's bring this to data and Joe. You've been there for almost 13 years.
Yes.
Now, I imagine on that journey, you've helped really build that pod of eagles, as you might say. So I'd love to hear more about what you look for and how you build that talents and intelligence and skill in your sales team, and how that's worked over 13 years and what you've seen.
Yeah, well, when I got there, I was lucky. There were two sales individuals that were on the team for more than a decade. And so I basically had, the recipe of what does success look like. And I looked at, when hiring new individuals, can these people do what our top performers that are on the team are doing today? And a lot of it has to do with grit. Everyone knows sales. There's a lot of rejection, and you need to be able to overcome that. But also, too, you need to be motivated to understand the technologies that we're offering and understand your customers' business, like knowing your customers and what they care about, so that you could be a business partner for them, not just a sales rep. When you're selling to businesses and the individuals are technical, they don't really want to talk to sales reps. They want their vendors to be business partners. And that's how we coach, and that's how we train the sales team. And that's worked really well for us over 13 years.
Okay. So you need grit, you need diligence, and you need to be able to have sales reps setting themselves up as partners. Now, when you get new sales reps into the business, what journey do they go on to get there, and how do you train them along that journey?
Yeah, well, ideally, and every sales leader wants to do this, they want to hire someone that has success in the exact same field that you're going to market in. And I don't think that's realistic. You're going to limit your success. There's a chance that you don't get to hire enough people fast enough. So for me, it's more about, like, what have they accomplished, and what do they represent, and what are their attributes like? And if they're selling technology, then, if you're in high tech, you probably need them selling technology. Otherwise, it's going to be too big of a ramp curve. But I don't believe they need to sell exactly what you're offering. Just need to be something similar. And then if they bring a book of business with them or contacts that cross over, that's always ideal. But I think that's short-sighted. I think too many companies look for that. And I think you need to focus more on what's that person's attributes, and can they do what you want them to do? And do they have similar attributes to your existing top performers?
Character-based, aligned with top performers. On the data piece then, Vince, how does data come into that question? It's quite qualitative at the moment, isn't it? It's us knowing our reps. And how does data come into how you see what top performers look like and how you measure against those with other reps?
Yeah, there's a couple of key performance metrics I think you want. Like, you want to know the metrics of the pipeline to the close ratio. What does that look like for your top performers? And based on their quota, what's the ratio that you need at the top of the funnel? What's the ratio that you need from a revenue and profit standpoint for 30 days and 12 months? And then what does their activity look like? Like, how many meetings are they going on, and what's their conversion rate for those meetings? And then in the sales cycle, it's always ideal to have key points in the sales cycle that gets you to the next level. Like, if you're doing a health check for clients, or if there's certain documentation, if there's certain scoping, or when you get to the final proposal, you want to be able to track all of those key performance indicators.
Yeah, so that's a great point. To go into more depth on it, Vince, when I speak to people, often the challenge is having those conversion metrics specific to a rep, rather than more or less we do 5x, or we convert 20% of our pipeline. So how do you make this stuff relevant to a specific rep? Have you gotten to the stage where you do have individual metrics, or what's your workaround if you don't? As often that isn't really possible.
Yeah, I think you need to keep the sales funnel and the sales process as simple as possible. So you need to have the key indicators to know what's going on with your business, but you don't want to make it too complicated for the sales rep. You absolutely don't want to slow down the sales cycle. So in our funnel, we really only have 3 major stages, and then there's a couple of key points that go along with that to give us more insight. But also too, like what we learned is our top performers that have been on the team for a long time, they have existing customers. We have the luxury with our business of selling more to our existing customers. If you just have one technology, then it's a lot different, and that's a lot harder. I would change that if you could. But since our top performers have a lot of long-standing existing customers, they've developed a lot of rapport and trust with those. We understand when we bring on a new rep, their ratios are going to be much better than bringing on a new rep. And so we've had to look over the years, okay, what metrics work for the new reps versus what are the metrics we're tracking for our top performers. And typically it's something like 3-to-1 versus a 5-to-1 or a 6-to-1, just depending on what the focus is for the new rep coming on board initially and what's their experience.
Awesome. Okay, so this is a great tactical overview of the data and the metrics. How does this link to the top level strategy?
I'm sorry, how's this what?
Sorry, how do these tactical metrics and this tactical way of viewing the data and our reps and how they're performing, how is that linking up to your top level strategy and the way we view data there as well?
Well, we have, I believe, like the board will set an objective that's 5 years out, and it's always about growing revenue and growing the profit. And so typically to get there, what we're doing is we're rolling out a new product or a service to grow the profitability of our offerings, or just sell more to existing customers and also onboard new customers. So, what we're tracking is what's our adoption with new customers and what's our churn with existing customers. And obviously you want your churn to be 0, but that's not realistic. So are we doing everything we need that once we get a customer that they stay on board? And then are we doing everything we need to add new customers every month? We want to add new customers every month, and we want to be able to track that. So if something's off, we know we could adjust and get back on track if we fall off.
Okay, great. And I'm glad you mentioned the board there. Crucial piece, obviously. So how do you help the board visualize what's going on? How do you help them tell the story behind the strengths and the weaknesses and any opportunities or threats that might be coming?
Yeah, I always believe you can't assume the board understands, the business down to the field or customer level, because a lot of times the board conversations are really high level. So I always want to give them some visibility of where we are today and where we are in shorter term increments. So for the board, you break it down usually, where you are for the year and for the quarter. And you have the data ready in case they want to go deeper than that, but usually that's what they want to see. So and so the way we do that with the team, so I could roll it up to the board, is we have metrics. We call this a scorecard. So scorecard gives me the metrics that I could see the business, what's happening every week. And then we have what we call rocks, and rocks are basically quarterly goals. So like an example of a quarterly goal is we onboarded X number of customers and we made our goal that lines up with 1 year, rolls up to 5 years for that revenue and profit. And then for the weekly metrics that we track, I always want to be able to tell how the business is doing if I'm on vacation and I'm out of the office for a whole month. So what do I need to see like each week to know we're on track? And so there's just a bunch of performance indicators that we check, like what sort of activities the sales team doing, like who they're meeting, like how many meetings did they have, were they relevant, did they turn into opportunities, what are we doing weekly from a revenue, gross profit standpoint, and so on.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that idea of if I'm on holiday, what do people need to know, right? And it raises a really good question, Vince, because so much of this is about, well, how do we make the data relevant? How do we make it relevant to the rep? How do we make it relevant to the board and the strategy? So in your mind, really, how do we make that digestible? And either if that's a process tooling thing, or if that's a story thing, and if that's how we explain the data, how do you go about making it super relevant?
Well, everybody knows, garbage in, garbage out. And, the way I think you deal with that is you need to get buy-in from your team. You need to get buy-in from the sales reps. They can't feel like CRM or all the data you're collecting is just for the executive staff. You need to show them how it helps them with their business. And in a small company, the sales leader probably has to do that. If the company is a little bit bigger, you probably have sales ops to help you with that. But at the ground level, I believe you need to show the sales team, this is what we're collecting, and this is how this data, this is how it helps you with your sales cycle with your existing customers. So like when their customers, like an example that a lot of people collect is when a customer goes to a website and they download something, or they attend an event, or they sign up for an event, you want to just keep track of all of those. Like we keep track of before a new customer buys, like how many activities did they do? How many events did they attend? How many campaigns were they part of? And the sales team could see this so they could follow on it, and they know where to spend their time with new prospects. But then also at the end of the quarter, when we're reviewing with the board, we're showing them what we're spending on marketing, what's working, what's not working, and what the conversion rates are.
Yeah, great example to mention actually is that marketing piece. Now, what a lot of folks don't have the visibility over is how those leads move through the sales funnel from marketing. And obviously a crucial role of the CRO is aligning those revenue functions. And I'd love to hear how you do that and how you pose those conversations and get silo leads working together.
Yeah, well, we want sales involved because we want sales to help marketing with the target list. Typically, marketing, they'll do their personas, but I mean, sales really knows where, where a lot of the opportunities are. And a lot of times they need help getting in or getting traction with the account. So that's how it starts with sales. And then that's how we get buy-in. And then marketing's doing campaigns, a lot of times different campaigns or multiple campaigns every month. And you want to do low cost campaigns, but then you also have campaigns that maybe cost more. So an example of a low cost campaign is, like an email blast with thought leadership. And it's something like, 5 keys to preventing ransomware. So, you get that little curious hanger there to get somebody to go and download something. But then the other part is maybe we'll have an event where we get more traction with the account. They move farther along, but it's more expensive. And that would be like a virtual event. And it's virtual because, we've been in a pandemic for a year. You couldn't get people to show up to any event. So we did virtual wine and cheese tasting where we had a sommelier come on board. So it's 30 minutes of thought leadership, Q&A, and then everyone hangs around for about an hour with the sommelier where they're drinking wine and eating cheese in their home. And that's worked pretty well.
Okay, bringing some of those in-life experiences back to the virtual world. Yeah. Question I had for you, Vince, right? I wouldn't put forward the argument that data's never mattered in sales, but the discussions I hear is that data is increasingly important. Obviously, you've been in sales a long time, so I'd love for you to fact check that statement and what you think. And also like where you see data in sales changing things, how it's going to go forward into the future.
Yeah, I think historically, sales leaders and marketing to a certain extent have focused a lot on data internally. So
Mm.
your funnel, your sales process, moving deals forward, conversion rates, and all of that's important. And we absolutely need to do that. But I view that as blocking and tackling. And to get to the more advanced data, which really I think helps the sales cycle and helps the team, is can you collect data on your customers' buying habits? And I think the challenge for all of us is we don't want our sales team to sound like salespeople. And maybe that sounds counterintuitive, but I mean, business leaders, they don't really like talking to salespeople they don't know. They like talking to salespeople that they do know. Why is that? Because salespeople they know understand their business. And if you're trying to get a new account, and if you can collect data on those target customers, on their buying cycles, then you could have a much more relevant conversation with them instead of just calling or emailing them and talking about speeds and feeds or features and benefits. They don't want to hear that. They want to know, can you solve my business problems? That's what they care about.
Absolutely, and that's a good one. So historic trends and how they're going to affect our pipeline, crucial, Vince, but can be difficult to do with a lot of traditional methods, right? So what is that? Is that a bit of art? Is that being a sales leader who's been in it for a while? How do you enter the science of that as well? What's the cadence, tooling, and methods?
Yeah, well, AI is a big buzzword right now, so is deep learning.
Mm.
And there's a lot of really cool tools on the market now that give you much better insight to what your customers are doing. There are tools out there that really show you what websites the customers are hitting, or what sort of searches are they doing. And all of this is available to collect. And you don't see all the individuals within the account, but you see if there's a spike on an account, if they're doing search for a certain technology that maybe your company offers. Like we have tools for a vulnerability assessment. So if somebody's searches go up for vulnerability assessments, we could see if that happens with one of our accounts. And that gives us the opportunity to have a more relevant conversation with an existing account or an account we're targeting.
It's interesting then. The kind of fundamental point then is how do we have the relevant conversations? And how does data point us towards what relevance looks like for each customer?
Yeah, relevance and trigger points. Like there's
Yeah.
certain opportunities that are trigger points as well. And if you could find that out, then that could be an opportunity for you. An example of an industry trigger point is a renewal. Like there's a lot of SaaS solutions out there that are sold monthly, but there's a lot of them that are sold annual as well. And if you know those trigger points, then if you start a campaign, you really want to be able to get your final proposal before the renewal on the competing product that maybe they already have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all that time you would otherwise spent speaking to someone who can't buy, they've just signed now, you can focus that time on. Is that the thing then? Is it about time efficiency then as well? Is that the major piece? We're spending our time where it really matters.
I believe so, because even if you have something the customer wants, even if you have something that would help them, if they don't have a budget, then you have to go through this painful process of, can they go find the budget, or I need to wait until they have budget, which is usually a year out. So if you could time it accordingly, I mean, we all have too much to do during the day, and our customers all have too much. Like not everyone can get to everything. And if you can help your sales team so that they get the best return on their effort, knowing the trigger points, finding those trigger points. So you start a campaign 6 months before that subscription renewal is due, then you have a much better probability of getting that customer than if they just renewed and you're starting your campaign 1 month after that.
Makes a lot of sense, Vince. Thank you. I'll ask you a final question. If you're in a room full of like the best CROs ever, what would you ask them?
What would I ask them? I would ask them, what would I ask them? I guess I would ask them if they have if they have a new product or service they want to offer, or if they need to do something to change the strategy that the board has set to be successful with the company, how would they go about that? And have they done that in the past, and were they successful?